Welcome to Epochs Across Eras, where we uncover the rise and fall of the great powers that shaped our world. In this episode, we witness the end of one dynasty and the beginning of another. For over 800 years, the Zhou Dynasty claimed the mandate of heaven, but by the 3rd century BCE, that mandate was in shambles. Regional warlords ruled with more authority than the Zhou kings. The age of unity was over. The warring states had begun. Amid this chaos, a new power emerged. Qin, once dismissed as a distant frontier state, now rising through legalist reform, military might, and unrelenting ambition. Join us as we follow the collapse of Zhou and the meteoric rise of the state that would forge the first Chinese empire. The Zhou once ruled all under heaven, but by the end of their reign they ruled little more than a city. Once sacred kings, now figureheads. While philosophers debated in courtrooms, generals drew blood on battlefields. The dynasty had lasted longer than any before it. But no rule lasts forever. In its place rose a power no one expected. In this episode, we watch the sun set on the Zhou and rise on the unyielding state of Qin. By the 4th century BCE, the Zhou king had become a ceremonial presence. Real power was held by the 7 warring states, each with their own laws, armies, and ambitions. Real power was held by the 7 warring states, each with their own laws, armies, and ambitions. The Zhou court in Luoyang had neither the strength nor the authority to influence the broader realm. The problem was structural. The Zhou feudal system, once effective, had collapsed. Power had decentralized for centuries. As dukes and lords grew into kings themselves, the Zhou had nothing left to offer. Their legitimacy rested only on tradition, and tradition couldn't command armies. Zhou kings attempted to maintain rituals and alliances, but without a military or taxation base, they had little leverage. The position of king became symbolic, a whisper of unity in an age of fragmentation. Meanwhile, warfare intensified. Reforms across China meant stronger states, smarter strategies, and more brutal conflicts. Iron replaced bronze. Crossbows were mass-produced. Conflicts were no longer elite duels. They were national struggles. In 256 BCE, the final Zhou king died. That same year, Qin conquered Luoyang, bringing the dynasty to a silent end. There was no grand rebellion, no heroic last stand, just quiet irrelevance, overtaken by stronger forces. The state of Qin, once on the western fringe, had long been underestimated. It was rugged, distant, and seen by others as half-barbarian, but it had 2 advantages: geography and vision. Surrounded by mountains, Qin was hard to invade but easy to defend. It used this security to reform internally. In the 4th century BCE, Shangyang, a legalist statesman, introduced sweeping changes. Noble privileges were abolished, land was redistributed, soldiers were rewarded by merit, and peasants were incentivized to farm more efficiently. Qin's military was reorganized, discipline was strict. Laws were uniform. Infrastructure, roads, canals, granaries, was built with precision and ambition. The results were immediate. While other states debated Confucian ideals, Qin focused on efficiency, strength, and obedience. It became a war machine with a clear goal: total unification. Kings like Zhaoxiang and Zheng continued these reforms. Qin expanded west, then turned east. By 230 BCE, it began a systematic conquest: Han, Zhao, Yan, Wei, Chu, and finally Qi. In 221 BCE, King Zheng proclaimed himself Qin Shi Huangdi, the first emperor of China. For the first time, the realm was unified under one name, one law, one ruler. Qin didn't just rise, it erased all rivals, and history took a new path. The fall of the Zhou Dynasty was not a sudden collapse, it was a long erosion. For centuries, power had slipped from the center to the edges, but that vacuum created opportunity. Qin's rise wasn't just military, it was systemic. By breaking feudal structures and enforcing legalist discipline, it built something entirely new, a centralized bureaucratic state. Merit replaced lineage, law replaced custom, order replaced tradition. While the Zhou held on to ritual, Qin embraced reform. Where Zhou sought harmony through hierarchy, Qin enforced unity through structure. The contrast could not be sharper. But Qin also absorbed the cultural legacy of the Zhou. It kept Chinese writing, rituals, and the dream of ruling all under heaven. It didn't reject the past, it reorganized it. In that sense, the Zhou didn't entirely die. Its ideas lived on in form, but its power, its kingdom, and its mandate passed to a new dynasty. With the rise of Qin Shi Huang, China entered its imperial age. The world of kings and dukes was over. The emperor had arrived. And behind him stood centuries of thought, war, reform, and the long shadow of a dynasty that had finally come to an end. The Zhou dynasty began with the mandate of heaven and ended with barely a whisper. But in its fall, it gave birth to something greater. Its decline opened the door for bold reform, centralized rule, and the dream of unity. Qin seized the moment, not just by force, but with vision. And though the Zhou vanished, their influence lingered in law, ritual, and political thought. One age ended, another began. And the story of China would never be the same. Thank you for watching Epochs Across Eras. If you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Let's keep exploring the past to uncover the stories that shaped our world. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the epochs that define us all.